how to homeschool year-around the right way. Yes, how to homeschool year-round the right way. I'll go out on a limb and say there is a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And even when I started homeschooling and I thought I knew what it meant, I had to take time to step back and really dig deep and understand what it was. So I'm going to share some tips about how to homeschool year-round the right way and why would you want to do that? It seems like it would be exhausting, and it can be if you don't do it the right way. But first, let me introduce myself. My name is Tina Robertson. My site is tinasdynamichomeschoolplus.com. I've been homeschooling about 25 years. I have 3 homeschool grads. I've helped hundreds and hundreds of new homeschoolers through my workshop and my book on Amazon to get on the road and stay on the road successfully homeschooling. I create lap books. I am the creator of the 7-step do-it-yourself homeschool planner, unit studies. There's all kinds of goodies for you over there. But these videos are always about you. And I love sharing my heart. I love sharing my tips. And I love reaching out to you and saying hello. So let me know where you're from when you're watching this. I'd like to say howdy ho. I'm in Texas, if you can tell. So let's talk about what is year-round homeschooling. You think the explanation would be self-explanatory, but it's really not. I had to figure out first if it was a negative or positive for me. But before we get to that, let me back up and explain. Usually there's 2 camps or 2 mindsets where we get conflicting information or conflicting opinions, and we have to decide what is best for our kids. See, if you've homeschooled from the beginning, like I did, basically, I set my first one on my lap when he was 3. I had a momentary lapse of insanity, I'll call it fear, where I sent him to part of kindergarten. I took him out and, of course, schooled him all the way through to high school, college, beyond. He's a young adult now. But basically, and my others never went to public school. My other kids never went. So there's 2 camps here. There's homeschoolers that have homeschooled from the beginning, where public school never influenced what we did. I don't care if it was summer, winter, fall, spring. It just never entered into my schedule. I didn't care what they did. Summer was no different than any other season. We did the fun things in summer like we would do in fall or winter. Then you have another camp of homeschoolers whose children have gone to public school for some of their journey, and they only associated rest for the weary and fun time in summer. So that's why sometimes there's conflict in opinions, and sometimes that's why kids aren't on board if you say you're going to school year-round, because all they think of is what they've been accustomed to up to this time, which for the kids that have been to public school, it does mean a break. It means a break from work. But when you can make your schedule year-round, for those that have homeschooled from the beginning, it doesn't really mean any kind of break unless their state law requires X number of hours, and sometimes it's easier for them to stick to the public school schedule. I've not stuck to the public school schedule August to May for more of my years than I have. When the kids got older and it got closer to middle school and high school, then we reined in more to that time because I knew there was career path or college path to be chosen, and I stepped more in sync with public school mindset. But until that time, I usually changed our year in January. It was just a lot better. There were good sales for curriculum during that time. So what it does not mean, so here's what year-round homeschooling does not mean. Sometimes that helps to identify what it is. It doesn't mean we have to school all the time. It doesn't mean we have to have the same pace during the school year as we do during summer. I mean, that would be exhausting. Now, it also means, it doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of making summer memories. It really means that you have all 12 months for you to decide what works best for your family. And that is a lot of control. What happens sometimes when we homeschool or we leave the public school mindset, we want to leave the public school mindset, but then we come to our house and we end up setting a public school schedule. And we're like, why are we imitating something we left? But we do it because we don't know anything else sometimes, or it just feels good to follow that. And sometimes homeschoolers, their kids still have friends that are in public school, and they want them to be able to do things with them afterwards. That wasn't so much our case. All of our friends were like-minded and were homeschoolers. We did have friends, and we still do, that went to public school. But again, that's not my family schedule. Even if they had went to public school, it's still not our family schedule for when we want to take vacation. Now, so what you have to decide is, do I want to spread my rest out during the year? That's a question to ask. And that's what I did. That's how I view year-around homeschooling, is spreading out my rest or my kids' rest. You see, it's kind of a different view than just thinking, oh, we're going to do school all the time and we're going to be weary and we don't get any break. I view it like it's a different pace that I want to set for my family. And then usually summertime is reserved for vacation to the public school world. And just think about this. I even looked up in a dictionary about 10 or 15 years ago what the meaning of vacation was. Depending on which dictionary you use, it's a period of time devoted to rest and pleasure. Do I really need 3 months consecutively of rest and pleasure? Well, maybe, but probably not. So a few weeks at a time is good. So just because the public school dictates that's when my family breaks, I refuse. And living here in Texas, guess what? It is hot. It is very hot. And we need to spend half of our time indoors. We just cannot get out, outdoors at a certain time of the day. On top of that, like I said, what is my family schedule? That during the summertime was my husband's peak time to work. Our business was busy. I helped with a family-owned business. That was not a good time to get away. But that did not mean that my children missed out on summer memories. Barbecues, if we wanted to camp out, swimming lessons, picnics, all the things about summer fun they could still do. So I wanted the choice about when I wanted to take our time off. And so I didn't just look at August to May, but when I looked at the calendar for the school year, I looked January to December. And like I said, I live in Texas where it's hot. It's hot, hot, hot. So I had to think of other times during fall, during spring, that were beautiful here and we wanted to get out. Not to mention, all the theme parks aren't so crowded during that time, which is something that my children enjoyed. So what you need to look at is, what is the ebb and flow during your year? So that's something that you need to decide. For example, I knew that during the summertime that if I had to, this is something that I would do probably each summer, is I would focus on one subject, perhaps that we got behind on or that I didn't feel like we did enough of. But most of the years, I used the summertime for a change in pace. I used it for a change in pace. What did I do? Well, we would only do history and science for about 4 weeks. I would get everything out, and if we have all of our crafts and our mess out, we might as well make something big or blow something up. So 2 days we would work on history or geography, some kind of hands-on project, because I'm big into hands-on. And then the other 2 days we would do a science project. And maybe the fifth day we might play a game, but I'm usually have been a 4-day homeschooler for most of my journey. So we had to have one day to catch up. But 2 days of history, 2 days of science. We would do that for about 3 or 4 weeks. That was it. That's a break. That's enough of a change from all the months of homeschooling. There's just so many there's so many flexible things that you can do during the summer. Also, what I tried at one time was I tried like 6 weeks on and 6 weeks off, just doing that year round. Well, that didn't really work for my family, because when the 6 weeks would be off, I may have been exhausted. I might not have been ready for a project. So instead of doing that, I just charted the days we had off and kept up with them. No, here in Texas, we don't have to keep up with how many days we homeschool, but I did for many years just to keep myself, responsible, keep myself in check, and for my peace of mind to know we're doing way more than a 9-month or 180-day year, way more by schooling year round. One of the other things too that I enjoyed was that I didn't have to have there wasn't so much downtime that my kids just completely lost math. Because, in public school, when they take off 3 months or 2.5, and they come back, the first month, the first 6 weeks is kind of review from the previous year. You don't really have that when you don't take off that downtime during the summer. And then a lot of homeschoolers, they'll just continue math and one other subject. When we got to high school and middle school, summer was a great time, because then we would just focus all 3 months on one particular discipline or one particular topic that one of my children were interested in. They could really dive deep. We love unit studies. We like to learn unbridled. We don't want to have to be told everything in a curriculum. When I first started, because the teacher in me wanted to follow that curriculum, and I'm a checklist, organized, planner type girl, but also I like to live a little wild when it comes to learning. And once you understand how learning unfurls through the years from pre-K to high school, you get a lot more relaxed. So we switched to a unit study approach so that there could be mastery. And so the 3 months in summer allowed my kids to be able to dive into a subject without restraint. They didn't want to study anything else. The one just wanted to study the Medici family and the Renaissance time when he got to high school. And he did that. He stayed on it for 3 months. Every timeline, every character, every painting, every book he could get his hands on, inventions, he just fleshed out a huge unit study about that. Another one of the years when the children were smaller, or younger, I should say, we did the rainforest. We just put everything else aside and we just studied about the rainforest, did a lot of hands-on experiences and activities. We had a rainforest co-op. We tried different foods, learned about the animals, learned about the river, learned about what products we get from them, the science, animal cells. And it was a fantastic studying about the different scientists. But again, I used summertime for excitement. It was a change of pace. Again, I hope you're getting a bigger picture of what year-round homeschooling is. It can be whatever you want it to be. It is so flexible. If you will look at it from January to December, and then the summertime, just those 3 months is another period of rest or relaxation or fun, you'll do those same activities that you'll do for fall or winter, the fun activities your family wants to do. It doesn't mean your kids miss out. But again, just remember, the reason why some homeschoolers are down on summer is because their background, their experience to that time influences their decision. And obviously it would. I mean, they've been in public school, for goodness sakes. They've not had control over what they want to teach or their schedule. So when summertime comes, they want to break free. Who doesn't want to be free? And so they just view summertime as the only time for that freedom. And it's not. We can have memories made through all of the seasons. And I have found that year-round homeschooling fits my family to a T. I can stop anytime I want to. I don't care if it's summer. I don't care if it's fall. I don't care if it's winter or spring. The season, summer, has nothing to do with it. It's called year-around homeschooling. It does not mean you keep the same pace. It does not mean you have the same power. When I mean power, that means the enthusiasm and the deep subjects. It doesn't mean any of that. It means that you can change all of them as you need to. So just think about it. Do you want to spread your rest out during the year? Because that really is what year-round homeschooling is to me. And also, if I had a child that was struggling with the subject, I can put the rest of the subjects aside. I can cover just that subject for that time period. We can also do a co-op during those 3 months. And then when the fall started back up, my kids were ready to hit theme parks when they were less crowded. So there's a lot of advantages to that. So think about year-round homeschooling. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them here for you. And again, think about what your family, what influences your decision to year-round homeschool. Do you have a good grasp on exactly what it is? It really just means you are in control of your schedule. You set it from January to December. Summer is no different than any other season. Now, there are some homeschoolers that I've helped whose spouse works for the public school system, or perhaps they have kids, half of them are public school and half are homeschooled. It would make sense to keep the whole family on the same schedule. But for me, I don't want to be dictated to, and I will not be dictated to by the public school. The schedule will fit my family, and summer's no different than any other season. So we are year-round homeschoolers. But again, remember what it does not mean. It does not mean no rest for the weary. It does not mean giving up summer memories. It does not mean the same pitch, pace, or power. It just means that I dole out where we do the rest during the school year. I hope that answers some of your questions. And if you have any, just let me know, post them here, and I'd love to answer them for you. Thank you. Until next time.